Welcome, it's great to have you here. As you can see, today we're going to talk about the DA12 again. We're going to take another look at it today on the trunk. A battery polishing machine, small and compact, and all of that with 75 and 50 millimeter backing plate. Today we're only using the 75 millimeter because I want to do a bit of polishing on the trunk with you and give you some feedback about the machine. I've had this at home since its launch and have been using it quite a bit, and today I just want to give you a bit of my feedback on the machine. This isn't long-term feedback, because the machine hasn't been on the market for that long yet. But I just want to share with you what I've learned recently, my opinion on the device, who it's suitable for and who it's not. And that's why we're making this video, and we're going to take a look at the trunk because it really needs it badly. It's completely done. Let's get started. You should be familiar with this area from the last video, specifically the trunk of the E46 Coupe. And you may remember we did these surfaces by hand, polished. If you haven't seen the video yet, definitely check it out. You can also get an impression of how it is. Is it worth buying a polishing machine? Or I'm going to test it all by hand, and I've also used the different polishes here to be able to give you some feedback. And I think it's definitely an interesting topic, so feel free to check it out. I don't want to give too much away, but it was super exciting. I'll turn off the ceiling lights now, those long LEDs. And that's where it gets even more serious, because you know my opinion on the subject of light. There is no substitute for spotlights. And now we really have the perfect lighting. And you can see what kind of damage is on it. And I want to do that together with you now. And I just want to test the DA12 again to give you even more feedback and to finalize my testing of the machine. And maybe it's something for you, or maybe it's not. No problem at all. But I definitely want to share all the information and my experiences with you. If you're wondering why this looks like this, so divide it into thirds. Because if you want to take a close look here, you'll see that in this area, a surface has already been worked on. That was from my hand polishing video. I haven't worked with the finish here yet, but we're going to go over everything, completely anyway. Now let's go over it with the heavy cut variant. As a pad, I used the gray pad from Chemical Works in the very strong cut area. And we take a little bit of what is left of the, let's add a bit of XO 505 to that. Let's add a bit here. Is the polyton still on? And what I've definitely noticed about the handling of the DA12 is, and I will definitely point out any negative aspects as well if I notice something, even though this isn't extremely negative, but it has definitely caught my attention. And that is, if you don't need the machine and put it down, you don't have a real one. Resting point on the machine, you can of course just lay it on its side. That's how I've always done it. But normally you can always lay the machine on its back. With this one, it's just that you don't have a proper, nice resting point. That means you also don't have any resting points here, 2 of them, any bumps, and not even down here. So if you lay it on its back, it always rests on this head here. At some point, this will also, I also think it will rub, depending on whether you place it on a hard surface. I wouldn't necessarily place it on a metal or wooden table. At some point, it will also suffer. I've noticed it, and to be open and honest, I always share things like this with you. And here at the back, you also don't have a place to set it down. So that means it really rests here on what I would call its bare back. And that's neither good for the head here nor for this control unit. That will eventually wear down over time. Especially when you slide it over the table because you're reaching for something and they slide a bit. So definitely here, always place it on a soft cloth, on a soft surface, and preferably on its side. Then it works too. What we've also already, in the first video, or what I hopefully already mentioned, is that you can't really see the speeds. Basically not at all. Because you start the machine. And you only see the battery level. That means you have these 3 green LEDs. And now you simply have, when you press a lot on minus, the lowest setting. Can you also check on the side? And now we can spread it out here on the surface. And at the lowest setting, it's still very, I would say a bit jittery. When we go to the higher settings, it runs much smoother. And we can spread it out wonderfully here. The problem is, we just can't visually see anywhere what level we're at. And that would be an improvement that one might want for such a... You could include that in a V2 version. But if we take a look now, I think with the comparable model from Mirka, you also don't have a speed display. And I don't think anyone has complained about that so far. But those are the points that I would simply improve. What I also mentioned in the first video is the handling of the machine itself. So it's super light. I think it's in the same weight class as the PXE. I think it's around 1 kilogram. And because of this compact shape and the quite large head, the main weight is here at the front. And you don't hold that up. You just have to hold the back end up here. It's super light. So you can already see here, the machine does tilt back, but very slightly. So the main weight is really on the head and not back here. That means the pressure weight comes nicely over this large stamp head. You could actually call it that. That's right, like a stamp. It's already at the front on the head. Ideal. So the weight distribution is top-notch, because a weight distribution of 50-50 on a polishing machine, meaning evenly distributed across the entire surface, is actually complete nonsense to me. A machine has to be front-heavy because that's where the action is. Yes, the pressure on the surface, and I don't want to have another huge backpack on the back that I have to hold up all the time. That means the weight distribution should be more on the head, my opinion. So now let's spread this out. You can also see here that my handling has changed a bit. Last time I was grabbing up here, now I'm more towards the back by the battery. And I extend the machine for myself, and I have a bigger lever. And with that, even more stability. If you've worked that in nicely, we can now increase the speed. And you see, I can just talk while doing this, and I don't think that's the case with any other machine. I think even with the Evo Mini, I always go with the off voice, but you can hear the running noise here. And now it's really looking nice here. Can you do it wonderfully? Let's work with that. I'm not really polishing yet. This is just to clarify the handling for you. And I believe the faster you set it, the better. The sound from the frequency will be. And you can see what real power it has. Now we're on the highest setting, and I would polish with this. And now take a look here. This is really going absolutely great, and I can still chat on the side. Still, I'm going to do the warm-up for you now, so it's a bit more pleasant for you. So this whole thing is now at triple speed, and I think you can see quite clearly that I'm coping really well with it. You really have to get used to it. A bit because you don't usually use such short, compact machines in daily practice. When you have all the long polishing machines and also the more compact ones like the DA9 and DA9 Pro, this one is just easier. Again, the shortest lever. And you really have to get used to it a bit, but I have to say I really enjoy working with it. With that, you can definitely use a compact corded machine on such a surface, but on the fender and side and pillar, it's really cool with the little device. And you also think a bit further ahead on the go with this thing, so I can drive over to a buddy's place, visit my parents, or do a quick sports repair. It's really fun. Yeah, and you can already see that just from the ceiling lamp. And we can also move back and forth a bit now. And there you see it, yes. We still have a very slight curl on it, but that's simply because we've now worked with a very strong polish and a very strong pad, and I should have worked with the 0505 for a bit longer. Then it would have gone further into the finish. But I really have to say I've gotten so used to it that I use it for my cutting stages. If it's not enough, I'll switch to a different pad. Or to the Ultimate Cut 6.3 if we stick with Sonax for now. You know, I'm actually a very tall person. Sonax polish fan. And you can also use the videos exactly for your polishing kits if you get one, like the one I've put together. But I think that's already a very, very clear result. Yes, and now you already have a really nice before and after picture. The paint is definitely revitalized, the haze is gone, and the scratches are gone. Really a very, very nice result, isn't it? Now we're going to go over it with the finish again. And I want to test together with you whether we can make this visible again. Maybe we're already at a point where the eye doesn't even perceive it anymore. That's why I'm just going over it again with the blue foam pad from Chemical Works. This is perfect for intermediate paints as well, especially for the finish. And with the X0406 from Sonax, just to stay within this system, for me this is truly a Dream Duo variation. And then just go over it nicely in a cross-hatch pattern. And with that you usually have a really nice finish. You can really take all the pressure off here. It's just about getting the finish really nice, itty, and smooth. And it actually works really well with the combo. So right. I definitely think the difference is very clear to see. And now the question is, can you see the difference between the 05s, 05, and 04s and 06 again? Because with the 05s, 05, we already have a finish of 05, 06. But if you don't drive them long enough, don't you usually get that far into this finish? Pure, but you saw on this small area, when we move over it very slowly, we have, and I think it's hardly noticeable, a very slight edge. But I think here in the camera image, it's hardly noticeable. So you can see, you can really get into the finish with the 0.5, 0.5. And I think someone who doesn't have a keen eye for this would hardly notice any differences or even no difference at all. And I think here too, if you go over it now, because this should be the boundary, you can definitely see it much stronger there. Examples. You can see it here a bit, but I don't know if the camera can capture it too, because even here now with the light, I really have to look on the screen to see this little transition right here. Pay attention to this line. Now I'm going to step away. Very, very slight, but the difference isn't very strong. That means we've really gone deep into the finish. And we can see here, we have a really nicely polished surface. And you always film everything up close and with a light. Everything's correct, but just take a look in person at what a difference it makes. If I now go over here with the light, and this is basically our sun, so to speak. And that's what it's all about. Take a look. How beautiful the difference is. And I think now you can even see the difference. Take a look. If I go over here, the light gets a very slight shimmer again. Look, and you can make it visible here. We only worked with the SO5 and SO5. Now these very slight, I would say, sanding marks are coming up. So we don't have 100% clear finish yet, and that's right here. It turned out really well. And on the side now, we have this milky finish. So it's really, really easy to see. And if you have seen the video on hand polishing, you now know that it is much easier because there is a big difference whether you work with a polishing machine or by hand. But if you put in a lot of effort and bring real power, like I did in the last video, for example, take a look. You can actually achieve a similarly good result, depending on the condition of the paint, of course. But here, with such an old project car from 2001, with so many kilometers and wear, you can really achieve a lot by hand. But with a machine, it's definitely more intense. We have also re-released the DA12. We tested it, and here, I have to be clear, it's a machine that is more suited for specialized areas. Because here you really have a super compact machine. I wouldn't really use the machine for a tailgate like this. I would go for 125 millimeters. It is still, for me, it's a specialized machine. In the 75 millimeter range, Chemical Works will definitely be releasing an extra machine, for example, one with a cord. That's still a bit missing in the range, and the team is also trying to expand their selection further. So for anyone who's saying, I'm looking for a small 75 millimeter and definitely want something cordless, they can check this one out. Who says, hey, and if you have a lot of surfaces on your vehicles, or depending on what you're polishing, where you want to use very compact machines. And really something cordless, that's just a nice alternative to the Evo Mini, because it can't work with a 75 millimeter pad in this case. So that means you now have another alternative here, depending on what you're looking for. And just a few last things about battery life. Here too, I easily got over half an hour of battery life. Even at full power, it polished the whole time. And during the time I used it, and eventually the battery was dead, but the second one was already fully charged. So you also don't have any downtime here, where you can't work because the batteries aren't fully charged. It definitely works well. Once you get a bit used to the controls at the back, it definitely works great. Got it? I clearly expressed my criticism there. It would be nice if there was an LED strip here that shows us the levels, because there are quite a few of them. But I kept catching myself. I always set it to the highest level. I'm not pressing down hard. I have it on the highest setting, and when I polish, I'll do the head up. Not that I'm just letting it fly all over the place. I just distribute it like this. I switch between the different levels depending on how hard I press. And then, once it has settled in, I go to the highest setting. That means I personally hardly ever use the level adjustment, but I might definitely want to mention it, just like the lack of storage options. I just place the machine on its side, for example, on a soft cloth. Otherwise, the thing works great in terms of volume. We don't even need to talk about the volume. It's super quiet. And I already did a volume comparison for you in the first video, and it's really striking how quietly the machine runs compared to other models. And that's really pleasant when polishing, so you don't have to distract yourself with any loud music here, which isn't good for your ears anyway. Or you actually need, in my opinion, don't wear any hearing protection. Till then, thank you for watching. If you have any machine questions, drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, you'll see it again in the upcoming videos. I always try to mix things up a bit. Next time, I'll polish with a different machine again. Just a totally wild mix for you. Here we ensure, if you have any questions about polishing, drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, we continue here with the next surfaces. And as always, have fun with your next polishing projects. Until next time, bye.